Hello. So, I want to talk about why the body gets sick. And this is not a scientific explanation, this is a very spiritual explanation. So, to scientifically debunk it is totally valid and fine, and that's okay. I'm not speaking at a scientific level. But the stresses that occur within the mind, the immense pressure that's there when somebody is essentially under a heavy ego, is immense and inordinate. It saps the body of vitality and energy. It makes people tired all the time. You know how depressed people sleep a lot, right? Well, that's just one aspect of this larger thing. When there's a tremendous imbalance, bad stuff happens, right? So if you have, if you're imbalanced mentally, or if you're very frantic or scurried or whatever all the time, whatever it may be, very fearful, it germinates, and this is scientific, so to say, like cortisol, the stress hormone, right? And that causes problems, right? It can, down the line, cause large issues. But again, getting past the scientific and more spiritual sense. Yeah, essentially the universe gives you sicknesses to push you, to push you, to push you to awaken, to push you to stop being fearful. And when people do, in most cases, they just symptomatically heal the problem through medication or surgery or whatever it may be. And then they can stop the symptoms of it. Maybe the problem keeps recurring, or the problem goes away at a physical level. But then something else comes up, right, in its place. And with the body is so complex that, oh man, there's so many issues you can have, right? Ask any internist or any even physician, right? Like, you can't protect against all of them. You can barely even protect against one or two of them. What you can do, though, is work on developing a positive and good internal sphere. I say positive. That's there's a downside to positivity in that it's still dualistic, right? I'm talking about a transcendent thing, but use the word crassly, positive. When you have positivity in you, a transcendent space, so to say, you feel light. There's no need for you to get diseases. There's no need for the body to implode on itself or malfunction. There's no need for the body to get sick when you're doing so well. Now, of course, even if you're doing well and everything, you still get sick, get diseases and so forth. But I'm talking about in a larger sense, like, generally speaking, you're going to get it less at a scientific level and at a beyond scientific level, at a spiritual level. And it's incumbent upon any person who is alive to take this seriously, because you can easily just fall down a rabbit hole where you're just mentally, awry, and then some physical problem occurs, and then you try to fix it, then you get on meds, and the meds have counter effects, right? Then the problem gets fixed, but you're on meds, now you're addicted to the meds, right? I mean, and then once you get off them, you have withdrawals, and then you turn to some other addiction, and that addiction can be physically harmful to you as well, right? I mean, I can go on about the many, many, many ways in which these issues end up compounding into more and more and more issues, sapping you of energy at a physical level at that. So the mental fear and neurosis and so forth, therefore, literally confirms itself in a physical level. Then you think, oh, see, I'm right. My body is dysfunctional, right? Maybe at present, but not necessarily so. Not necessarily in a month or in a year or over the longer horizon of time. And even if you're in too big of a hole to dig out of, there's too much permanent damage, or you're too old or something, the manner in which you perceive your living existence can vitally and fundamentally transform and change. Because physical suffering is a necessary, it is inevitable and indubitable. All living forms, no matter who and what, will encounter it. Death as well is inevitable and indubitable. All living forms will encounter it. What matters in the interim, what matters for the living, what matters when we're alive, what matters in truth and in reality, is the awareness that we have of our true selves in such time while we are in physical form. Therein is the meta solution to this physical problem issue that I'm talking about. And it's such a solution that the physical problems are like the least of your non-concerns. Whereas when you're at a very egoic level, the physical problems are probably at the foremost of your concerns. Then the mind worries about it, that you can get psychosomatic diseases, and all sorts of myriad malignancies and problems can occur. And what I advise anybody is that if they're getting sick in rapid and in multifarious ways, to look inwards. I mean, do the treatments and everything, but look inwards. Breathe. Don't resist as such. Do what the doctor says and all, but don't have an internal resistance. Don't make an identity of a sick person. Believe that you can come out of it. And even if you can't, believe that you yourself can be happy nonetheless, which is true. Some saints, mystics, and so forth have undergone a lot of suffering, either voluntarily or not, and they've been able to realize that they're not as tethered to the sensations of their body as they thought. Gandhi, for example, did a lot of hunger strikes, he did a lot of meditation, and it's reported that he went to get a root canal once, and that's like the most painful thing you can get in your mouth, and he refused the anesthesia because he had developed such control over his senses that this physical suffering, it's not going to cause him suffering. And as a result, he can live from a deeper morality, in a sense, that is internally generating and germinating, because his mind is not so occupied with his physicality. His entire being is not tethered to the whims of the flesh. As you may notice, he was thin, and he lived probably very healthily until he was 80, and he died because he got shot. He didn't die of some health issue. He seemed to be good, so much as we can tell. So the physical, in large part, ends up representing the mental, or the spiritual, so to say. Malignancies in the body should be looked to at their scientific level, which is obvious, and also at their spiritual level. And when you have a deeper acceptance of the universe, a deeper acceptance of your fate, I don't mean that in a fatalistic sense, I mean literally your fate, right? Whatever that may be, whatever your time on earth here is to be. This whole disease thing becomes a largely speaking, an afterthought. Then you can focus on higher and higher and higher and higher levels of consciousness. More expansive ways of living, of thinking, of growing. More ways if you're interested in helping the world. More intelligent ways in navigating your own life. Feeling peace at the reduced dysfunction in your surroundings, of which you're a vital part. Increased personal peace and happiness and transcendence. Understanding of your deeper identity at the depth of consciousness. The immortal underneath the mortal. the ether inside of the physical. The happiness inside of the sorrow. The beauty inside of the ugly. And the amazing inside of the mundane.